Hey, this is Daniel Groh. Thanks for checking out this video. I recently hit 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, and that just still blows my mind. So I told myself I had to plan something awesome, and I wanted to kind of go back 10 years or more and look at some of my very first photographs. I might make a separate one where I go to my first 3D renders, my first 3D art, but for this one, I think I'm just gonna focus on my photography, which I've been doing for 17 years now, which is just crazy since I was 15. I think I did the math right. 16 years, 17, something like that. I'm old. And I started photography very young, and I'm very thankful for that because I found my passion in early high school. And that is just the greatest thing ever, to find your passion and one of your life purposes early on in life. It's great. So I'm going to go back in time. I found my very old hard drives that most of them still work. My earliest one, I think, is from like 2005, doesn't work. I have two other old drives that have a bunch of old stuff on there. Some of my very first actual photo shoots, my very first ones. I'll try my best to find the first one. But yeah, we'll see if memory serves me right. I want to walk you through the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm going to analyze them and say, hey, this is what I did right, this is awesome, and this is what I did terribly, terribly wrong. So I do love self-deprecation and making fun of myself, so there's definitely be a lot of that. But overall, I think this will be very educational, especially if you're newer to photography, because all photographers, when you start, are prone to certain things. Trends, just trends, lots of trends. But I think this will be super educational for anyone that's starting in photography. And I'm also going to share with you my photography story, which I've never shared online. But real briefly, before we get to the fun, embarrassing stuff of looking at super old, 15-plus-year-old photos, I'd love to share my kind of story, how I got into it, and how my whole journey has gone thus far. Yeah, so let's get started with that. So as a child, I have always been super creative, always building crazy things with Legos, always drawing fantastical sci-fi stuff in my sketchbooks, which I still have all my sketchbooks, which is super fun and also embarrassing to look through, just like the other photographs we'll be looking at later. But I love creating things. The gears in my mind are always turning, trying to reinvent the wheel, make something cool and new. And that carried into my discovery of photography. So I was always drawing and doing Lego stuff. I got into computer art in middle school and using MS Paint. Then I moved up to Maxon Cinema 4D, even played with Maya and Bryce for a little bit, which is like high budget Hollywood stuff that I totally had illegally. I got rid of all that, don't worry. And I discovered the family camera. I think it was my freshman year in high school. It was a little Sony point and shoot. The lens aperture would open and then the lens would actually pop out. It was motorized and it was like 2 megapixels or 3 megapixels. I really wish I could find the model number, but there's so many old Sony point and shoots from early 2000s, I can't find them. But it was terrible, but it didn't stop me. I kept learning. I learned composition. I learned, as best I could, exposure with that camera, even though I don't think there was any settings. It was all auto. But I found a passion for creating visual art in a new way. Drawing was my first love. And then computer art was my second thing. It was like, wow, I can make stuff that doesn't exist and is impossible. And then my third love was photography, where I could capture what really did exist and frame it, literally, and beautify it and present it in a new way, the way that I saw the world. And I found new ways of seeing the world through photography, and that was such a fun pleasure to discover and to learn. My second camera, my parents got me when I think I was a junior in high school. It was Sony as well. And it was a really nice point and shoot. It did have a fixed lens, which means you couldn't change it wasn't a removable lens, but it had manual controls, which was so cool then because I didn't even know that I should be learning manual. I didn't know it was even called that, but I was learning it in early high school, or actually late high school, and learning what shutter speed did, what aperture did, what ISO did. And I began to just use manual strictly. I never used the auto modes. I wanted to make the images look how I wanted them to look. And in order to do that, I learned manual, and I learned it pretty good early on. So I'm really thankful for that as well. But I took pictures of just random things, nature, macros, textures on the wall. Probably looked like a crazy person half the time, taking pictures of just flat walls. And I said, look at this door. Look at this beautiful door. What is it with doors? I don't know. They're cool to me. And, scenes and just little still life scenes that I saw that stood out to me as artistic and as creative, whether they were a man-made thing or something due to age and decay that looked interesting, or just nature did it on its own. I loved it all, and I love capturing that stuff. So a lot of my older photos that I experimented with and learned through was still life and macros and nature. And then I think my junior year of high school, I discovered my love for portraiture. And that's my biggest thing in photography is I love portraits. I love people. I've always been an extrovert. If you know me, you know that. I can talk to anyone off the street and probably be pretty decent friends with them within a short amount of time. I just love people. I love their stories. I love how different people are from me. I know who I am, but I love seeing who other people are and how that contrasts. Why are they like that? It just intrigues me, and that's a whole nother tangent I don't want to go down. But I love people and photography. I also loved, and the crossroads between the two was really fun for me to get to capture people's uniqueness, to get to capture their beauty, their outside beauty, and sometimes if I did a good job, their internal beauty that made them special and unique. So I began to go down that road. Macros and still life was great. I still enjoyed doing that from time to time, but then I started going down this pathway of improving my portraits. How can I get portraits to look better? How can I really capture the person in a more true way while still being artistic and adding my own flair to it? And so that was a fun journey, and I am nowhere done. I'll never be done with that journey. That is always something that you're continuing to go down to learn and improve yourself. And if you think you're done learning, then you stopped learning and you've stopped growing. So photography is something you never finish. It's always getting better, hopefully. And it's always something that you can improve on, which is why it's a great kind of scalable hobby and also a scalable business. And I found that to be true for myself. So portraiture was fun. I did some senior pictures in high school. We'll get to that later. I shot a few friends, kind of model type photo shoots. I did my first wedding when I was a senior in high school. That's terrifying. They were a friend of mine she was just a grade ahead of me. She had just graduated and got married early. And yeah, they let me, for some crazy reason, let me do their wedding. I think I charged them like $240. I don't know why it was $240. I feel like that was, or something obscure like that. I'm sure there was some math behind it. But yeah, I did a wedding, and it wasn't half bad. It basically half rained, and the officiant was half drunk the whole day, but it was a fun day. So first wedding when I was a senior, and I've been doing them ever since. After high school, I went to college. I went to Bible college in Austin, and for 3 years, and that was awesome. Austin is amazing for photography. You just go 10 feet or look around a block, and there's another location or something cool or someone very interesting to photograph. There's no shortage of photography content in Austin. So I had a great time exploring the city, trying new genres of photography. I got into maternity. I shot a few models. I did some seniors. I think I started to get into cosplay. I was later. That was later down the road. So exploring all the genres of photography that I felt comfortable with doing was really huge in my growth. And I encourage other photographers to try every kind of photography you can imagine, again, that you're comfortable with doing, because you might find something that you didn't know you were really good at. You might find something that you could make a ton of money at that other people aren't as good at as you, or you maybe have a unique spin to it. So try it all and narrow it down to a few, and then from those, find your specialty. Work that. If you're in it for the money, if you're in it to run a business, that's my advice. And Austin was really great for me because I got to explore different types of photography and learned a lot that way. After college, I had a job down in Brownsville where I was a pastor, and all along I had been doing photography as a side gig. And I was charging more and more every year. I was kind of figuring out the business of things. I was, of course, improving my skill and my eye and my equipment. Eventually learning off-camera flash, which took me to a whole new level, getting better lenses, and getting better editing software. I used GIMP for years because GIMP is free. It's a very capable software for what it is. But eventually I made the jump to Adobe Lightroom and Photoshop. And that was a huge level up for me as well. So even through being a pastor and working through college, and then after that coming back home and getting some odd jobs to be closer to family, I've been doing photography all along. I never quit. I never really slowed down. Instead, it was picking up slowly more and more. Around 2020, my full-time job as an ATM technician let me go due to budget cuts, and the business got hurt really bad because of shutdowns of the stores. So they had to let go a bunch of people on the ends, which was me. And so I said, oh, okay, it's time to be a big boy and kick this into high gear and make photography my full-time thing. So since then, it has been my full-time job, and I do ATMs on the side a little bit, but I'm focused all my time and effort and schedule on photography and videography, and I wouldn't have any other way. It's an incredible career. It's not easy, but it is rewarding, and it's fun, and it's creative. For me as an artist, I found that I didn't really do well in typical jobs. I didn't do well in office settings. I didn't do well in the restaurant setting. And it was all because that was not an artistic career. I wasn't using my creative brain. I wasn't using my skills that I had been building since middle school. I wasn't doing something that I enjoyed that had real fruit that I could be proud of. When I create art for people and they cry when they see their pictures and the pictures are on their wall for 5 to 10 years, that's what I want. That's rewarding to me. And I know that all the blood, sweat, and tears that went into it was worth it because I'm making something that matters to me and to others. And that's, in general, that's just the best career. If you can do those things, you've got the career that you need to follow until life or God tells you otherwise. Now, if I back up a little bit, around 2015, I think my friend Nate and I went to our first Comic-Con, and of course I brought my camera because I'm a nerd, but I'd never been to Comic-Con before, and I was blown away by the amazing photographability of cosplayers and conventions. There's just so many people with incredible outfits and costumes and props and stuff that has just really intrigued me. And so I think that's around the time when I did probably some of my first cosplay photo shoots. I know I did a few. I'll try to dig them up and show them on screen here. But yeah, that's when I kind of discovered, like, hey, I got a thing for this. Like, my nerdiness and my artisticness and my technicalness of camera and lighting and editing all just comes together really, really well to make really, unique and great cosplay photos. So that's sort of where my specialty started. But of course, I do pretty much all kinds of photography and videography, and I enjoy it all. But the nerdy stuff and the special editing is really what scratches my itch. So enough about me. Hope that was interesting. If you have any questions, ask me. But let's get into my old photos and let's get embarrassed, okay? No, just kidding. Let's learn some stuff from old mistakes.
All right, here I am at my desk. Let's get these old files open. Unfortunately, my very first hard drive, this old guy, this Toshiba, I think it's like a 1 terabyte, probably less, wouldn't work. So any of my computer nerds out there, if you know how I can get an old one revived, if I need to crack it open or something, let me know. Well, the likelihood of that is working. It wouldn't turn on. So yeah, let's look at these old things. So I figured the best way to review a bunch of photos would be just in Lightroom because it just works and I know how it works. I grabbed a few of my earliest photo shoots I could find on my other hard drive and I put them all here on the left inside the shoots folder. So these shoots were done, a lot of these were actually done at school, during the lunch break or after school. I convinced a few of my friends to pretend to be models for me, and I learned a lot. That way. So this is one of my very first ones. This is my friend Samantha. Let me zoom in a little bit here. As you can see, this is such a classic, like, overly contrasted photo here. This is something that's going to come up a lot with new photographers, at least in the era when I was a new photographer. Maybe it's different now, but contrast was like the coolest thing. Everyone was adding a buttload of contrast to everything. And look how it destroys the skin tones. It's literally like red and orange and a really not great yellow there. It's just not natural. I mean, there, I'm just playing with colors. I don't know what I was doing. And as you can also tell, my style is changing between like every other photo. It looks like a different photographer did each different photo because I didn't know what I was doing. And that's okay. That's pretty normal for new photographers to experiment and try new things. Classic black and white. That one never goes out of style, right? The other ones definitely went out of style. The soft soap opera haze on top, it's not a thing anymore. Although I'd still see it come up every now and then. So yeah, this was done outside my high school. I went to Canyon High School in New Braunfels, Texas. And that was probably one of my first like purposeful photo shoots. Here's my second one of my friend Jennifer. Of course, I love redheads. I love red hair. It's beautiful, but it's also a lot of fun to photograph because it's just colorful and it stands out. I'm noticing my composition is a little wonky here. I definitely am good at centering things, and I'm good at putting things off-centered, the rule of thirds, left or right positioning. But there's some that are just kind of weird. It's like there's things cut off that shouldn't be cut off. Like where is her arm going and what's happening there? This one, I don't know why I overexposed it a billion stops. It looks awful. This one's kind of cool, kind of provocative and interesting, although it is very close. I like the pose of this one, although the sun blaring on her legs just really annoyed me. And I didn't really know any better. Things annoyed me and I didn't know why they annoyed me until I learned later about lighting and soft lighting and cloudy days and how much I love them. Here it is, selective color, classic newbie style, black and white the background, but keep your subject in color, or vice versa, make them black and white for who knows why. Why would you want them to look like a zombie? I don't know. And leave the background color. I hate it. I do not like selective color. This right here is almost a perfect portrait. If I had not cut off her feet, never cut people's feet off unless it's like a knee up photo or a 3/4 photo. But this is like I was in between a 3/4 and a full body and I didn't know any better. And I cut her feet off. Lark is a beautiful girl and a beautiful woman, and I always liked her look, and her hair was awesome. These are really nice. I like this one, this kind of off-centered one with something interesting over here. I like the expression here. Love making people laugh. It's my greatest joy. Hey, we have a She-Hulk before we even knew that was a thing. Interesting. Some overlay, double, triple exposure, something going on there. This was, I think, my first senior shoot here, my friend Natalie, which I totally, when I was going through these for this video, I sent these to her and I said, hey, ready for something embarrassing? Your first senior photos. This one's not bad. Sepia tone is generally kind of safe, although it is, again, it's another style that we just don't really see much anymore. But the emotions are good, and the lines and the composition is pretty decent. Again, why is this exposure so off? I have no idea what I was doing. I think I was using GIMP to edit these. I'm pretty sure I used GIMP back here. I actually used GIMP for many years, even when I got much better and was making decent or okay money. Still used GIMP, and then I finally converted over to Lightroom, and it changed everything. Yeah, these are done downtown New Braunfels. So I was getting in the right direction here. I'm putting her in the shade, which is one of the best tips you can do on a sunny day or earlier in the day when the sun is inescapable. Find solid shade, which is a complete chunk of solid shade coming from a building or a very, very dense tree, not spotty light. We'll get to that in a minute. And so I was doing the right idea, although she wasn't completely covered, and I was exposing for the grass and not her skin. So that's why she's underexposed. So I was almost there, but not quite. The lighting on these was a little nicer. I think it had a little bit better shade. Maybe the sun was a little bit less intense. But I remember that very first photo shoot I had where I finally got to shoot kind of on accident, either on a cloudy day or at the right time of day. It really literally was like I didn't know what I was doing and it just happened to work out. These are pretty good. I can tell the light was getting softer at these photos right here. And I was, of course, much more pleased with those photos. Again, I didn't really know why. Oh my gosh, here's my first wedding, my friend Rose. This was, I think I was a senior in high school. Let me see if the metadata is accurate. Let's see, 2007 in April. Yeah, this was a month before I graduated high school. I did my very first wedding. Why they hired me, I don't know. Actually, she was my friend. She was a grade just above me. And yeah, that was great. It was a great experience. I fell in love with weddings after that and haven't looked back since. Still doing them. I wish I knew how many. Hundreds, maybe. I don't know. But I don't think I did a bad job. It was difficult because the contrast here, his dark suit, her white dress, and my camera, of course, not having a great dynamic range. I think this was shot with a Sony camera. It was not a DSLR. It had a locked or a built-in lens that could zoom in and out, and it could go to f2.8, which was awesome. I had no idea, like I didn't know any better. It was just what it had, and whatever this 2.8 number was, I liked it because it was brighter and it got that blur and the bokeh. So I was really blessed to have kind of on accident got a decent starter camera for the time, and it had manual. It had a manual setting, which is really cool. I learned manual without really knowing any better. Love this silhouette edited there. Yeah, it was a rainy day. Like you can see the ground is soaking wet, and it was almost raining. Like there was dots of water flying through the air while I did this photo shoot. Here's the officiant. I'm pretty sure he was mostly drunk during the wedding. It was very entertaining. We got some really weird abstract stuff I did here. This was a trip to California with my family to see my grandma who lived there. There's that driftwood horse in one of the, you guys probably know, there's an airport with that in it. I like doing this kind of stuff. I got a whole bunch of road signs, little collage, cool stuff here. Fishes, contrast standing out to me. My eye always gravitates towards contrast and composition and detail like this. I love the little tiny details. The things that caught my eye, I would say, that catches my eye. I'm gonna take a picture of that. See how well it looks on my camera versus in my head. There's that classic street. Everything's at like a 45-degree angle. Love this. So we went hiking up to Yellowstone or the Dome, I think it was called. I don't remember the name of the mountain, but it was intense. And I got bit by a wild squirrel. I didn't get rabies. Oh my gosh, here I am. I kind of started photography doing nature stuff and macros. And non-people portraits. And then I think my junior year, I took my first portrait of my friend and I was like, this is cool. This is different. I like people. I like portraits. Do them together. And it made me happy. And so been doing that ever since. This was the shoot that I did where I discovered cloudy days. And I fell in love with them. Let me rotate some of these. These are bothering me. So we started at Green and then we went to the Conservation Plaza, which is a place with a bunch of old buildings. And see, the lighting is just so even. You know, there's not like harsh shadows and sunlight. And I just loved it. My friend Erin, man, I got to send these to her. She's like married with kids now, I think. But yeah, I just loved it. And I was like, what is different about this day? It took me a few shoots to realize it's all about lighting. But photography is about two things, really. Timing and lighting. The timing refers to when you capture a moment. You know, is it before the laugh and you miss it? Or is it during the laugh? After you counted down to 3 and you took the official picture, you take another picture after that, you get better timing, you get a better emotion, and it tells more of a story. Because story is about time. But then to capture that story in that time and moment, you need good lighting or interesting lighting. And the better the lighting, the more impactful that storytelling device is. And so as I learned more about lighting, my photography got better. As I learned more about my equipment, using better lenses and f-stop and controlling manual settings, my photography improved, and of course with my editing knowledge increasing, my photography improved a lot as well. This shoot is special to me. It was done at my friend's house in New Braunfels, Ashley here. This is her house, which is an incredible little farmhouse. But my friend here, Raquel, sadly passed away from a freak car accident. She was in her 20s, an amazing light of a person, one of those just gems, that you don't get to meet a lot. And she's no longer with us. So these photos are especially special to me and her family because they really captured her beautiful personality and her outward beauty as well. But I like these photos because the composition is interesting. Like, this is cool, We got this funny pose, interesting sequin dress, like pink nails. So obviously this girl got, done up a little bit. And then old computer monitors. Why are there computer monitors outside? I never asked, and I never figured that part out. But I love the composition. She's centered. There's white. She's black. She's got interesting angles. The background is all straight angles. There's contrast in visual aspects as well, not just color and brightness. This was her dad's truck that he drove for work. So, and her dress matches it. There's just a lot happening in these photos that I really like. And it's like the things you look back and you just think, I could never recreate that. I could try. Of course, I could literally recreate it, but it just wouldn't have that same magic. Like, I was an innocent baby photographer, just taking pictures of stuff. Look at this. The bouncing of her sequins in this dark room. Even though she's underexposed, it's just cool. Records in the wall. And this is timing. This was not a photo. I did not say, throw your head back and laugh and throw your arms out. I don't remember what I said. I wish I did. But I captured a moment that was special and only happened once. It's cool. The colors are wonky. The exposure is a little dark. Of course, the sky is blown out. If you have a good eye for photography, I think you can appreciate the composition that I'm getting better. You can see I'm definitely improving over the past, I think, 2 years at this point. This is my senior year as well. And things are definitely looking a little better. This is a senior shoot of my friend Mariah. I think I was maybe out of high school at this point because she was a grade below me, I believe. And you can definitely see that I'm using framing. I'm framing the subject with things around them. This is a little bit far, but I'm using, creative composition here. Got a nice off-centered shot during a laugh, more laughing. Nervous laughter can be good because if you capture it right, it looks like happy laughter. When really they're just uncomfortable and, never been photographed before, and that's okay. A lot more framing going on here with foreground. Yeah, getting better at my posing. Here we go. That's probably the official photo. And then that's the laughter afterwards or before it. Cool. So I think that's about it that I'm going to show my portraits. These are a few kind of like those abstract ones I went through earlier that really is what got me into photography. I grew up drawing and loving visual art, movies and comic books and cartoons. And then when I discovered the family camera, I learned that I could make stuff. I could make visual art too. That struck my fancy, that tickled my visual, my brain as something interesting. And on this trip to California, I took so many pictures. Check out this freaking rock I found on the sand in San Juan Capistrano. Hard rock. I kept it with me. I don't know where it is now, but I had it for many years. That's cool. I love this. The texture of the flame, the sand, that extreme. I think I zoomed in really far. It just looks interesting and flat. I like the dimension to it. The texture and values of this really struck me. I love that bright red. This portrait I got of this girl, I think she was like a second cousin or a third cousin. I don't know what she was, but it was a family reunion. And it was, again, a nice cloudy day. And I think at that point I got it. I was like, ooh, this will be great for some portraits. Let's sneak in a few pictures for fun. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this little tour through my early photography. The moral of the lesson is you can take great photos and you can learn to be a great photographer with any camera. It doesn't have to be the fanciest, newest, mirrorless camera with a $3,000 lens and the best lights you can buy. Just learn manual. Just learn composition. Just learn to capture moments of time with lighting that you want. Learn to interact with your client. And then once you get through those basics, then start jumping into lighting and flash and editing and all the fancy stuff. But I think photography is a beautiful art form because anyone can learn it. It's very approachable, very affordable these days. If you have a phone on you, you can start learning photography. You can start taking better pictures than anyone you know if you learn the basics of composition, lighting, and timing.
Well, that was a fun trip down memory lane. I hope you enjoyed it as much as but I highly doubt that's possible because I love looking at my old photos. For me, when I look at an old photo that I took, it brings back that memory of what it was like when I photographed it. You know, the things leading up to it, the process, the experience, the emotions, sometimes the smells. All of that comes rushing back to my brain when I look at my old stuff, and I love that. It's so much fun going down memory lane. But I hope you learned some stuff from my mistakes and also from the things that I did right. I try not to brag on myself too much, but I do think I did a few things pretty decently for a beginner. But that all kind of goes back to my art background that influenced that and held that up. So I hope you learned some great stuff. If you have any questions, ask me in the comments or email me. And thank you so much for watching. Have a great week.